let's start by having a quick look at the external anatomy of the earthworm. The earthworm is an animal in the phylum Annelida, which means little rings. Little rings, if you think of a ring, it's a circular object, refers to the segments that we find on animals in this phylum. So this is the first time that we see true segmentation in the body plan. So each of these little segments, or rings if you like, is essentially a repeated body unit, and each of those units is called a metamer, and this repetition of body units is called metamerism. Okay, so this is a unique development in the annelids, and we'll see it later on in other animals as we move a little bit further. So externally, it's a pretty simple animal. It's a long tube essentially. It has an anterior end with a mouth. It has a posterior end with an anus, so there is a complete digestive system. And probably the most remarkable thing that you'll see on the earthworm is this pale, raised, sort of smooth area close to the anterior end of the body. This is called the clitellum. So clitellum, that is probably a good reminder for what the name of the class is to which this animal belongs, which is the class Clitellata. So the clitellum is a structure that's involved in reproduction, and it's essentially responsible for creating a cocoon or a case in which sperm and eggs are deposited. Fertilization in this animal is external from the body. It takes place in the little cocoon, and the cocoon then slips off the anterior end of the animal and is deposited in the soil, and the little baby worms hatch out of that. So that's the clitellum. Some other things that you may notice, you'll see there's a bit of a color change front to back. There's also a texture change as well. Now if I run my finger up and down this surface of the animal here, it feels a little bit rough. There are setae, or hairs essentially, sticking out of the surface, the ventral surface predominantly, of the skin of this animal. So those setae are used to help the animal grasp the soil as it creeps forward. Okay, so there's setae on here. The other thing we might notice, and it might be a little tricky to see on this video, but we'll try. Running along the dorsal surface, you may see this area where there is a slightly darker sort of line running down, and it goes the entire length of the body. That is actually the dorsal vessel, the main blood vessel, that is just sort of, it's showing through the skin essentially, but it's actually lying just above the intestine inside, and we'll see it later. But that's the dorsal vessel running the length of the body. So that may be another good indicator for you if you're looking at the dorsal side or the ventral side. Okay, so that is the external anatomy of the earthworm. We'll move on now to the internal. So what we're looking at here is the internal anatomy of an earthworm. Let's start by looking at the digestive system. So just to orient you again, we've got the anterior end of the animal here. The posterior is at the opposite end. Most of sort of the business is happening anterior to the clitellum, which we saw earlier. So we're going to just focus at the anterior end of this animal. So the digestive system, of course, starts with the mouth. We've got the mouth down at the very tip of the anterior end down here. That opens into a short pharynx, which is just this pale bit of tube right here. The pharynx then opens into the esophagus, which is actually difficult to see because it lies underneath all of these other structures on top we're able to see here. We'll come back to these, but know that beneath this lies a esophagus, which is just the next part of the tube of the digestive system. The esophagus opens up to this thin-walled sort of bag, this little structure right here. This is called the crop. So the crop essentially acts as a stomach. It's basically a storage unit for food before the mechanical digestion takes place. Speaking of the mechanical digestion, that's what we find next in this system, is this hard-walled, you can see how hard it is here, and slightly paler sac or bag, and this is the gizzard. So the gizzard is a very thick-walled muscular structure which is responsible for mechanical digestion, so physical breakdown or grinding of the food that's coming in. And then posterior to the gizzard, we find this long tube here, this whole thing, and that's the intestine. And the intestine runs the entire length of the rest of the body, and it ends in the anus, which is at the very posterior tip of the animal. And you can see the wall of this intestine has been opened a little bit, and inside there we find digested food. It looks like dirt because that's what it is. Earthworms, you may recall, they ingest soil, and they extract organic nutrients out of the soil, so little bits of, say, plant material and that sort of thing, which has been partially decomposed. So these guys are excellent decomposers and very important for adding nutrients into the soil as well. So that's basically the digestive system. Let's come back to what's going on up here. So the first thing you'll probably notice are these sort of large fleshy lobes. There's a big one, all this here, and it sort of wraps around on both sides. Those are reproductive organs. They are male reproductive organs called seminal vesicles, okay? And that's basically where sperm are produced. And then if we look to one side, just below, you'll notice a very small round lobe right here, and another very small round lobe right here. Those are female reproductive organs, and those are called seminal receptacles. So those actually hold sperm after cross-fertilization has occurred. So you will, of course, note, because we have male and female organs, that this animal is monoecious or hermaphroditic, but they do mate with another individual to cross-fertilize. Okay, so both male and female organs. There are other structures involved, but they are difficult to see, so we'll leave them out for now. But understand that we can see the two there. Now, the other thing going in this region of the esophagus, I'm just going to move some of these reproductive structures out of the way so we can see a little bit better. You'll notice that there's this darker mass on top, sort of right here. And it actually consists of a series of rings. If I move them apart, you should be able to see, here's a ring right here. There's another ring right here, another one here, another one here. Pretty much in each segment there you'll find a little dark ring. Those are called aortic arches, and those basically make up what we would consider the heart of this animal. Now, the other structure you may have noted, when you were doing positioning this animal before doing the dissection, you were asked to lay it dorsal side up so that you wouldn't cut the dorsal vessel, which was that dark line running down the exterior that you could see. We can actually see a nice section of the dorsal vessel right here, that little dark line there, and it does continue on. See if I can find it. I've probably cut it there, but this dorsal vessel carries on the entire length of the body, and that's the main blood vessel running down the dorsal surface. There's a similar vessel on the ventral surface, so underneath, that's called the ventral vessel, okay? So these aortic arches wrap around. They act like rings that wrap around from the dorsal to the ventral side, allowing blood to flow basically front to back, okay? So that's the heart, and then we have the blood vessels there. And I think that those are the main structures that I would like you to know for this exam.